Hey, what's up, Spencer? My name is everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you are somebody who is into books, anime, or fandom, make sure to subscribe because I am constantly uploading reading vlogs, anime reviews, and fandom discussions. And with that, let's jump right into today's video. Today we are doing a reading wrap-up. We are going to be going over everything that I read in the month of July, and I read 18 books, which is quite a lot, so let's just get right in. Alright, so the first book that I read in July was Everyday Angel: New Beginnings by Victoria Schwab, and I gave this book 2 stars. This book is about our main character, Aria, who is trying to become an angel, and in order to do that, she has to earn her wings. So she is cased with, or given the case of Gabby Torres, whose brother is in the hospital. He's really sick, and it isn't really certain about whether he is going to make it or not. The point of Aria coming and helping Gabby isn't to try and heal her brother, it's just to try and help Gabby kind of process what's going on and come to terms with everything and figure out how to kind of interact with her mom and just, everything that just comes with having a sick family member. So in many ways this was good because I liked the concept, but the execution was pretty poor. The story was very flat. There were several aspects of her powers that didn't really make sense to me. And while I appreciate Victoria Schwab trying to kind of be diverse by having a Spanish-speaking main character, it was very obvious that this was a Spanish character that's been written by a white person. And I say that as a white person, which means that it's extra obvious. The only thing that really she would do would be oh, mom, ¿qué pasa? And then continue speaking in English and stuff like that. So, Next book that I read was Volume 2 of Demon Slayer. This is a manga about a boy who goes into town one day, and when he comes back, he finds that his entire family has been murdered by demons except for his sister Nezuko, and he is now trying to become a demon slayer and try and figure out what he can do to try and restore Nezuko's humanity. I have seen the anime. I'm fully caught up on it. I actually just very recently finished watching season 3, so this is nice. It's only the 2nd volume, so obviously it's very early on in the story, and there isn't really anything that is differed between the manga and the anime so far, but I am kind of a little bit more invested in the manga right now because season 3 ended. There were a lot of questions that I have about Genya, mainly WTF, what is even going on with him? And if I want to know some answers before season 4 comes out, my only way is to read the manga. Next book that I read was Animal Farm by George Orwell, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. This is a book about a animal farm that runs out its farmers and kind of becomes a communist farm where everything is by the people, for the people, or by the animals, for the animals, and they create a whole entire new society, but things kind of go very wrong because the pigs end up running things and manipulating things and making it so that they end up hoarding everything and all of the other animals get nothing. I originally read this book when I was in 5th grade, actually, and I knew that I fundamentally didn't understand 90% of what was going on, which was the reason why I decided to reread it. And obviously, now that I am a almost 30-year-old man and have a lot of knowledge on how things like communism, socialism, and politics works, it made a lot more sense. I thought that it was a very straightforward book. I don't really have a lot more to say other than that it made sense, very straightforward. I could see how everything was set up. I think it was a very good way to show how things can start off as in a very good place and then kind of become corrupt and downfall and stuff like that. So yeah, it was good. It was interesting. I like George Orwell. I've read quite a few things of his in the past and will probably read a few more things of his in the future. The next book that I read was the 2nd volume of Death Note, the Black Edition, which is technically the 3rd and 4th volumes of the regular manga. In case you're unaware, Death Note follows a teenage boy, Light Yagami, who finds a notebook where if you write down anybody's name, they die, and he decides to create kind of a whole entire new world order where he kills off every single criminal and every bad guy and try and like compels people to be nice and good and things like that. And then obviously things kind of go downhill because now he's a serial killer and there's a lot of people who want to chase after him, including his dad, who is the head of the Japanese version of the FBI and stuff like that. I have watched all of Death Note before, and this is my first time reading through the manga, and I am thoroughly enjoying it. I am also thoroughly enjoying plenty of TikToks of Kira and Elle on obviously TikTok. That is one of my favorite subgenres of TikTok, is people just playing up how absolutely dramatic and just absurd the dynamic between the two are.
Clearly Kira is a bottom in denial. If Light says he likes to top,
if I say I want to top,
it'll prove
I am
he is
Kira.
Next up, I read The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, The Gentleman's Guide to Getting Lucky, and The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, which is the first and a half and second book in a Montague siblings series. Overall, I would give this series 4.5 stars. I really enjoy it. The first book follows Henry Montague as he goes off on his tour throughout Europe before he kind of like has to like become a man and like let go of doing all of these ridiculous childish things, you know, having fun. His dad wants him to like take over the estate and stuff like that, but Henry absolutely doesn't want to do that. He wants to have fun and be gay with his best friend Percy and like do all sorts of stuff. So the book is kind of about him trying to figure out how to escape the clutches of his abusive father and live his life the way that he wants to do. The second book is kind of, or the book and a half is kind of like a fun little book or little story about him and Percy like trying to be romantic like for the first time together and stuff. The author said that it was inspired by all of the fanfic that she has read in the past, and it definitely kind of feels like a fanfic because it's just about these two characters trying to get together, and that's something that a lot of fanfic is about. And then the second book is about Felicity Montague, which is Henry's sister, and her trying to go out in the world and become a doctor and be taken seriously as a woman doctor in the 1700s. And then also along the way, she kind of starts to understand that she is asexual and aromantic. She doesn't really have any interest in men or women either way. So it's a very interesting, fun, queer series that I have been reading. And I've actually already read these 3 books before, and the reason why I'm rereading them is because there is a third and final book in the series that I haven't read yet that I want to get to in August. The next book that I read was In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens, and I ended up giving this book 2 stars. This book is about our main character, Prince Tal, who's kind of doing the same thing that Henry Montague is doing, which is going out into the world and exploring things kind of for the first time before having to buckle down and like take responsibility and things like that. And while Prince Tal is out on his journey, he meets a boy who turns out to be a mermaid, and they kind of fall in love. In many ways, this book was really cute and really sweet, but in many ways, it also didn't work for me at all. I didn't like a lot of the characters. I didn't like a lot of the plotting that was going on. I just, I really had to push myself through this book, and I absolutely love F.T. Lukens. So This Is Ever After, that was the book of theirs that I read previously and gave 5 stars, and unfortunately found this to be a disappointment. And I think the reason is because So This Is Ever After is very clearly a parody of the kind of like D&D group where you have a bard and a thief and a magician, and you guys are on this quest to kind of like take down the bad guy. It was very clearly like a parody of that. So when people were kind of acting very flat and just like their, like, in their box character, it didn't feel weird because it was very clearly supposed to be stereotypical. FT Lukens kind of tries to do that in this, where everybody is really flat and stereotypical, but this isn't really like a parody of anything. It's its own individual story. So that makes it not really work in many ways, unfortunately. I wanted to like this book so much, and I didn't. I kind of want to try and read like a third thing of FT Lukens to see if maybe it's a one-off and just this one book doesn't do it for me and other things of theirs does, but I don't know. There was such a time in which I would absolutely refuse to read a second book by an author that I loved for this exact reason. I didn't want it to happen that I read a second book expecting to love it as much as the first book and then be really, really disappointed. But you know, but I also shouldn't be limiting myself like that, you know, because there's plenty of times in which I have read second books by authors and have also loved that. Alright, the next book that I read was Yona of the Dawn, Volume 9. This is a manga that I have been working on that is about Princess Yona, where her cousin murders her father and kind of steals the throne from her, and now she and a group of other people are kind of trying to fight and take her throne and kingdom back. After reading Volume 9, I've actually decided that I'm not gonna continue in the Yona of the Dawn series, and that's because I genuinely don't care or have any interest, and I kind of think that her cousin is a good ruler and that he should stay the ruler. The reason why the cousin like murdered her dad was because the dad was very passive and didn't like conflict, and there were a lot of really bad things going on in the kingdom that the dad like kind of just ignored, which is the whole entire reason why the cousin like killed him and took over, was because he realized that there needed to be like active change that is happening. And since he has taken the throne, he has been doing active change where he's trying to increase the economy in certain tribes that have been kind of failing, and he's trying to get rid of like bandits that are stealing from different villages, and he's trying to get rid of like human and all sorts of things. So he's doing good and positive things in many ways. He's not a bad ruler. He just descended to the throne in a bad way. And Yona's just over here being like, oh, but like, I'm supposed to be the queen because like that was my dad. And sorry, but your dad previously ruling and you coming like biologically from him does not make you a good ruler. And in many ways, it seems like your cousin probably should continue in his ruling, because it seems like he actually cares about the people and wants good things to happen to them. He doesn't seem like a bad guy in any way outside of the fact that he murdered your father. Anyway, yeah, I can't continue in the series because in many ways I don't care about Yona and I don't want her to succeed, so there is nothing motivating me to continue reading these manga. The next books that I read was I Want to Be a Wall, Volume 1 and Volume 2 by Honomi Shirono, and this is such a cute, sweet series. So this series is about this couple here where this girl here is a ace woman who is into boys love manga, and this guy here is a gay man who is desperately in love with his straight best friend, and they get beard married and have this really cute, sweet, queer, marriage. No romance. There is no romance between these two at all. A really cute, sweet, queer marriage where they really love and care and support for each other. He has this book called like 800 Things That Good Husbands Do, and he just goes through the book and tries to do these things, and she loves and supports him in his adoration for his best friend, even though it is unrequited and might never be requited. And I've just really been enjoying this series. I actually talked about in my last book video, my mid-year freakout tag, about how much I have been enjoying the queer stories that are coming out of Japan and how much I am enjoying reading about queer stories from outside of America. And this is my new favorite because I just think the way that these two love and support each other and the ways that they're trying to figure out how to have relationships in ways that make them happy and stuff like that is just really sweet and cute, and I just love the conversation that's happening in here, you know? The next book that I read was The Last Book in the Universe by Rodman Philbrick, and I gave this book 4 stars. This is a book that takes place in a dystopian future in which nobody reads anymore because you can kind of just beam and interact with all stories in your mind, except for our main character. He has never been able to do that because he has epilepsy, and trying to get his brain probed in that way would always trigger a seizure. So he ends up meeting this old man who is one of the only people who still reads and writes, and teams up with him to try and go and see his sick sister, and meets a girl who comes from the part of the world where things are very good because all of these people are like genetically enhanced to be like perfect and stuff like that. And just, there is a lot going on in this book and a lot to be said for a very short and elementary school book. There were a lot of things that I really liked in this book. There were a lot of conversations that were happening in this book, along with like geneticism and like who was responsible for what and all sorts of different aspects that I just really, really liked. The biggest thing that I didn't like about this was, however, is many times in dystopian future books, you know, they use words that are adjacent to what they mean to kind of like establish that this is the future and we kind of have a different vocab. And this book was written in the 2000s. And so in this book, instead of saying that someone might be trying to kill you, they say that someone is trying to cancel you. So there are many times in which it is hard to take scenes seriously when they're saying like, oh no, we're gonna get canceled. Oh no, all of these people are trying to cancel us. Because of the context of the word today, it kind of makes these scenes like really funny and stuff like that, and is just adds a layer of enjoyment to this book, because there's several times in which I was like, wow, I feel like this is how conservatives feel like cancel culture works, but isn't really. So the next book that I read was the second volume of Spy Family. This is a manga about a spy named Lloyd who needs to go undercover and try and infiltrate a school. And the way that he does that is by getting a fake wife and getting a fake daughter. Although the thing that he doesn't know is that his fake wife is actually an assassin and his fake daughter can actually like read minds and stuff like that. So it turns into a whole, there's a lot of comedic stuff going on in here. So it turns into a whole thing. I love this series so much because I'm somebody who actually is not really big into the fake dating trope, because many times people are just lying about stuff that they should be honest about, and it just super annoys me that when people just aren't honest and open. Oh, I just don't want to tell my family that I'm going to be single for the 5th Thanksgiving in a row. Like, I don't care about stuff like that, but there are so many layers to this fake dating trope that I am absolutely on board with it, and I am obsessed. And on the train of manga, I have also read Volume 7 of Hunter x Hunter. This is a manga that has recently started coming out with chapters again, which is part of the reason why I'm starting to get into it. I absolutely love the anime. It is about Gon, who is trying to become a hunter because his father became a hunter. He abandoned him, and Gon's thought process is, I mean, being a hunter must be the best thing in the world if it's something that is going to make you abandon your entire family. So I want to see what is so great about being a hunter, and then in turn find my dad and kind of like connect with him over this shared thing. So I'm just getting back into the Hunter x Hunter manga because they have finally come off of hiatus, and I want to really get far into it because I don't like where the anime ended. The manga continues past where the anime ended, and I want to get to that point. I want to see what happens after that, and I want to see more of Luca. Luca's my favorite character, and I need some more of her. All right, we're getting close to the end. The next book that I read was Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, and I gave this book 3 stars. This is about our main character, Stevie, who goes to this elite school in Vermont where the man who created this school 100 years beforehand, his wife and daughter were kidnapped and held for ransom and then never seen ever again. And it was never truly found what happened to them or who kidnapped them or where their bodies were or anything like that. So it's still this open mystery 100 years later. And part of the reason why Stevie has come to this school is because she really wants to be the person to solve this mystery. Now, that sounds incredibly interesting, except for the fact that that isn't actually what this book is about. Yeah, you would think that this is like a standalone and that's what this, no, it's a series, and that mystery about the wife and daughter being kidnapped is something that is dragged out over several books, and this book introduces a separate murder like 75% of the way through, and that's what this book is supposed to be about. So that's a big reason why I gave this book 3 stars, is because the murder mystery that I picked this book up for is not what this is about. And because it's something that's 100 years ago, like, it's not something that's really gonna affect these characters and stuff, so I don't care about the mystery enough to pick up the second book and try and figure out who actually kidnapped this wife and daughter 100 years ago. There isn't enough going on in this book for me to even truly be invested in the murder that they introduce 3/4 of the way through, because it's such a slow setup and stuff like that. It just, I've heard a lot of people say that they really like it, but it just didn't do enough for me. Just way too slow, not enough information, and yeah. All right, and the last book that I read in July was All the Way Home by Mariellen Langworthy, and I gave this book 4 stars. This book is about our main character, Maisie, who is a white girl living in the South during the 1930s, and she actually ends up falling in love with a black girl, and they kind of run away to be together, and these struggles that comes from not only being in an interracial relationship in the 1930s, but a gay interracial relationship in the 1930s. There was a lot that I really liked about this book, but the thing that really did not do it for me was at one point they come across a town that is for black people only, no white people allowed at all. And Maisie is just kind of like throwing this fit and being like, I don't understand why these people don't like me just because I'm white. And it's like, sweetie, I understand that you're like 17 and this is kind of supposed to be the beginning of your arc of fully understanding like the depth of your white privilege, but at the same time, can you really say that you don't understand what's going on when you live in the South in the 30s? Like, it's just a little bit like, come on, sweetie. The book also ends super abruptly, like to the point that I'm not even sure what the characters decided to do. So that was kind of really disappointing for me. I wish that I had like just a little bit more for the ending. It really just like cut it off. To the point that it felt like the author kind of just forgot to finish the chapter. But there was a lot of things about this that I really liked and thought was sweet and cute and stuff like that. Alright, so those were all of the books that I read in the month of July. What did you think? Did you read any of these books? I would love to know. Let me know in the comments down below. But besides that, just make sure to stay safe and have a fantastic day. Bye.